So maybe it's because it's springtime in the Northern Hemisphere. And with spring comes new possibilities, a sense of new horizons, new pathways forward. Or maybe it's because pragmatically you just got a bonus and you've been thinking, what am I going to do with that extra money? It sure as heck is not going to be exactly what I've been doing for the last 2 years. So I am going to move in a new direction with my time, energy, and resources. Or maybe it's because we're 2 years into the pandemic and you're thinking, I am really clear on what I stand for and it ain't this, so I'm going to put my energy and my focus in this direction. Regardless of what the reason is, I can't tell you how many leaders in the past 2 weeks that I have spoken with that have some form of massive change or transition going on for them. And it's sometimes a combination of factors. So today, let's talk about what beliefs we can actually take on to help propel ourselves forward through change with greater ease, with greater flow, that will kind of aid our movement forward, regardless of whether that change is something imposed upon us, like, hey, a team member just quit and now we're down a key critical team member to be able to accomplish our year-end goals, and we don't know how we're going to accomplish what was set before us. Or it's something that you chose personally, like, I have decided to make an entire career transition. I am moving in an entirely new direction. I'm moving across country and I am starting a new chapter of my life. Either way, whether it's something that is a change that you are receiving, it's kind of imposed upon you, or it's change that you are choosing, there are beliefs that can help propel us forward and things that can hold us back. Now, I believe that every disruption is an invitation into transformation if we let it. The thing is, when change first hits us, even though cognitively we can know that when a change hits us, good or bad, we choose it, it happens to us, whatever, we know that even though we can have an initial physiological reaction of, even if we choose it, like, whoo, deep breath moment, here I go, or it hits us as a surprise, like, and it kind of takes our breath away, we need to ground our nervous systems first and foremost, and that's something that we actually take a look at in Reset and Rewire, the program that really looks at getting calm and clear on demand. That's a program that Dr. Carla Stanton and I have developed and will be releasing soon. But beyond that physiological taking charge of our energy, then there's a belief and action component. And we may cognitively know that when that change hits, it's the same thing that can feel a little bit like a deep breath moment, also has kernels of possibility, of growth, of transformation within it. And we can know that, but then stepping into that is something else, because not only do we have that physiological reaction, but emotionally it can feel messy. Because it is. It can feel disordered because our physiology is actually disordered and we haven't made sense of the new reality yet. So it is a bit disorderly. It can even feel chaotic depending on the nature and the amplitude of the change. Here's the problem. If we believe at some subconscious or even conscious level that change is going to be painful and that it necessarily leads into a certain amount of decline, decay, deterioration, this is a product actually of our Western orientation, at least in the Western culture, around the second law of thermodynamics, entropy, which basically states that in a closed system, right, things will fall into decay or disorderliness. And it can feel like, gosh, what's the point? This is like a little bit hopeless at the moment because things are going to have to necessarily decline before they get better. Now, there are lost periods of productivity because we are dealing with a new kind of a disorder before a higher order that happens. But it can also be helpful to know that in science, besides the second law of thermodynamics, which states, entropy is going to lead to things decaying, there's also a parallel law of syntropy in quantum physics that has to do with things falling into a more elegant, complex, higher order. Now, there's a ton of research that is still being done in this area, and there are various different experiments that are showing promising evidence of how this is true at a physiological level, in a physical science level, and in other realms. At a physical science level, one of the things that I find helpful to remember is that in ecosystems, where there is dry agricultural land and rain is coming down at a very strong pace, if that land cannot absorb the rain, the water will fall into pathways that actually accelerate erosion. So, which is kind of like entropy, right? It accelerates an entropic impact on the environment. But what syntropic agriculturalists have found, and in fact, they actually coined this term, syntropic agriculture, or you can look at upward spirals of transpiration in physical science and ecology. There's actual evidence that if you can take action to look at how you can use that force of the change, in this case, the rain, on the atmosphere, and take 3 particular actions, it actually transforms dry landscape into lush vegetation and lush sustaining ecosystems. It's really kind of exciting work, and it's a good reminder to me that the opposite of entropy is syntropy. In other words, we don't have to go through a necessarily negative spiral down in the face of change. We can actually spiral up. How do we do that? Well, there's 3 lessons from agriculture that I'd like to share with you, and you might try them out in your own personal changes that you're exploring today. So number 1, what people will do in the physical science realm is first and foremost gain altitude. So literally get higher up on the slope and see from a vantage point what the drainage looks like. And notice that if it falls into this natural drainage pattern, it's going to lead to erosion. But if we can gain altitude, we can then get the learning and decide where are we going to actually try to channel this energy in a different direction such that it sustains the land rather than causing erosion. So the translation personally is no matter what change you're going through right now, whether it's something that just hit you kind of upside the head or you chose it, what is there for me to learn now? What is the opportunity? What, from this higher perspective of everything that I'm taking on with this change and all that it encompasses, what possibilities exist that did not exist before this change? So that's number 1. Number 2, the second thing that they will do on the actual physical land is rather than try to take the energy of the water as it's going through a pathway and then divert it, kind of move existing current paths and oppose it into a new direction, which is going to take greater force and amplitude, you simply go higher up and forge a new path so that the rain, the force of the change, can actually channel in a new direction. Translation personally. Okay, so what kind of new path forward could I take one small action towards today that would channel my energy in a positive new direction, a new trajectory forward, so that I don't spiral down and then try to amp my energy up later, right? It's always harder once you're like halfway down the negative spiral to get your energy up. So what small action can I take today that would channel my energy forward? And then number 3, what they found in ecosystems is that once you channel the water into a new direction, there are other kind of allies that show up to support that new direction. So in an ecosystem, it may be animals that then start to burrow in and like further kind of pave that way for the rain to fall in that direction. There may be other hikers that come by and then further kind of pave that way, whatever. In our own personal lives, it's encouraging to know that as we take action in a new path, expect that other allies will show up. Who else may join in and follow your lead? Who else may find encouragement from the approach that you're taking? And that thereby doubles the effort forward. So these are 3 things that help me whenever I'm in the face of change to know that there's another way besides entropic impact. There's a syntropic impact that I can create, a new, elegant, higher order. And that helps me remember that any disorder that I'm going through now is just the precursor to higher order.